The lived experience, last week I was at a conference in Peterborough, and the lived experience there was a very interesting one. I'll sort of share it with you. I can't be as eloquent as the young police officer. But a 35-year-old handsome police officer walks in, he's got his uniform, he's got his weapon, he's clearly on duty, he's doing his job. About 4 or 5 years ago, he was involved in taking down a drug house. He was the first one in, and as soon as he encountered sort of what we, the military would call the enemy, but the alleged perpetrator in police jargon, the guy opened fire and shot him. He was shot in the shoulder, bullet went through his shoulder, hit 2 ribs and out of his back. Immediately, his friends behind him sort of opened fire to sort of, suppress the bad guy. He jumped down. In that process, he got shot in his leg by his friends. He tells the story eloquently of sort of bleeding out, lying on the lawn of the house in front and thinking, he's a young father, he's got a kid, 3 and 7, I'm dead. One of the thoughts that came to his mind as he's doing sort of in his mind is saying, oh shit, we forgot to put the paramedics on standby. So he's thinking, I should have done this because now there's going to be a delay, the boys are going to help me. Long story short, airlifted to Toronto to St. Mike's Hospital, golden hour, sort of all the trauma, physical trauma kind of things that occurred, recognition of the mental health consequences, his buddies, he had peer support in place, the Peterborough Police Force understood it, the bosses understood it, this kind of a thing, and he had treatment. So now he did some time on the desk, which no cop apparently wants to do. Now he's back, full member of the police force. How's he doing now? He's got a little bit of shrapnel in his shoulder that reminds him of the injury, which really affects him only if he's doing really heavy shoulder presses. He's got a little something left in his brain. Freud talked about PTSD as being the splinter of the mind, right? So he's got a little bit of shrapnel in his brain as well, figuratively speaking. And so when he watches war movies and he watches people that are shot, that are died, it affects him somewhat. But it doesn't affect him as a father, it doesn't affect him as a police officer. So in many ways, the idea of the injuries being the same, whether it's a physical injury, psychological injury, they can be treated and people can continue to function in society is part of my reason for the optimism, and we're going to continue to sort of expand that. The lived experience, this panel here, I'm going to sort of step out of the way because I'm very excited to hear about this, is, we've got John Bradford here, who's going to talk about the lived experience, and, probably one of the top forensic psychiatrists in the world. And part of what I like about the lessons learned is that 10 years ago, the lived experience would have been a soldier, would have been somebody, I was in a place and I got blown up, my buddies died, this kind of idea. And we've moved now into the first responder community. We've sort of talked about this. But part of, as we move forward, because we've always known that 8% or so of people are going to have PTSD lifetime just in the civilian population, because bad things happen to good people all the time. So we can expand our idea, sort of our stereotype, if you will, of who gets PTSD. As clinicians, sometimes we think about our pro-transcriptionists that listen to these horrible stories and type them. But there's 911 operators. There's many, many people that are exposed to toxic things, and trauma can be toxic for many people, and we need to sort of understand that.